There is a quiet tension in the world right now. You can feel it in relationships, in conversations that never quite land, in the way people scroll endlessly, searching for something they cannot name. Men feel it as confusion, restlessness, or numb exhaustion. Women feel it as hyper-independence, anxiety, or the sense that they must carry everything alone. This is not a moral failure. It is not a generational weakness. It is a psychological and neurological imbalance. Something ancient has been forgotten. For most of human history, masculinity was not something to be proven. It was something embodied. Masculinity was not loud. It was not aggressive. It was stable. A presence that said, I will hold the line. I will move forward. You are safe here. When that presence disappears, everyone feels it. Because the sacred masculine is not about men. It is about structure in chaos, direction in uncertainty, containment for emotion. And without containment, emotion turns into anxiety. But modern culture gave us a lie. It said masculinity is either domination or something to apologize for. But true masculinity lives between those extremes. In psychology, it is called agency. In neuroscience, it is goal-directed nervous system regulation. In philosophy, it is logos, ordering principle. Masculinity says, this matters, that does not, and I will act accordingly. Not violently, not emotionally suppressed, but decisively. Neuroscience shows us something profound. The male and female nervous systems are not opposites. They are complementary strategies for survival. When a human being, man or woman, lacks direction, dopamine collapses. And when dopamine collapses, motivation dies, depression rises, addictions fill the gap. The masculine principle is aim. Without an aim, the brain deteriorates into chaos. This is why so many people feel tired without being physically exhausted. They are neurologically ungrounded. Why women are affected too. This is where many misunderstand. Women do not suffer because masculinity exists. They suffer because it's absent, when the masculine principle is missing. Women are forced into constant decision-making. Emotional containment disappears. Attraction collapses into resentment, not because women are weak, but because polarity requires difference. Carl Jung warned us, when an archetype is denied, it does not disappear, it becomes possessed. When the king archetype collapses, the tyrant appears. When the warrior is suppressed, the coward emerges. When the magician is ignored, manipulation replaces wisdom. The sacred masculine must be integrated, not erased. So the question is not, should masculinity exist? The real question is, what happens to a society when masculinity has no initiation, no responsibility, and no meaning? And even more importantly, how do we rebuild it without returning to violence, dominance, or shame? In the next chapter, we uncover the 4 masculine archetypes living inside every human nervous system and how imbalance creates suffering for both men and women. The masculine spine. Every healthy psyche has a spine, not a personality trait, not a gender role, a spine. In psychology, this spine is called ego strength. In philosophy, it is logos. In biology, it is the ability to withstand stress without collapsing. The sacred masculine is the force that says, I can hold pressure and remain oriented. Without that spine, the nervous system bends to every emotion. And emotion without structure becomes chaos. Order is not control. This is where people get confused. Order is not rigidity. Structure is not domination. True masculine order liberates. A river without banks becomes a flood. A psyche without structure becomes anxiety. The masculine principle creates banks, so life can flow somewhere meaningful. This is why boundaries feel safe. This is why clarity is attractive. This is why decisiveness calms the nervous system. The four archetypes. Carl Jung observed something universal. Across cultures, myths, and dreams, four masculine patterns appeared, again and again. The king, order and blessing. The warrior, action and protection. The magician, insight and transformation. The lover, presence and devotion. These are not personalities. They are neural and archetypal circuits. Every human has all four, and suffering begins when one dominates or disappears. 1. The king, direction. The king archetype answers one question: what matters? The king does not react, he orients. In neuroscience, this is prefrontal cortex regulation. Long-term thinking, emotional containment, meaning over impulse. When the inner king collapses, men become passive or tyrannical. Women become hyper-controlling or exhausted. Societies oscillate between chaos and oppression. The king blesses, and without blessing, people seek validation endlessly. 2. The warrior, healthy aggression. Aggression has been misunderstood. Aggression is not violence. Aggression is forward movement against resistance. A baby reaching for food is aggressive. A boundary is aggressive. Truth spoken under pressure is aggressive. The warrior archetype allows saying no, action, and protection. Without it, people become nice instead of honest. And niceness is not kindness. Niceness is fear with manners. 3. The magician, awareness. The magician sees patterns. He steps back. He reflects. He understands systems. In neuroscience, this is metacognition. In psychology, it is insight. When the magician is undeveloped, men manipulate instead of understand. Women over-intellectualize emotion. Wisdom becomes performative. True magic is clarity without ego. Imbalance and collapse. Here is the truth most people avoid. You do not become whole by choosing one archetype. This would make you depressed. The sacred masculine is integration. The king without the lover is a tyrant. The warrior without the magician is a destroyer. The magician without the king is a manipulator. The lover without the warrior is an addict. Balance is not softness. Balance is power under control. But what happens when aggression, leadership, and authority are shamed instead of initiated? What happens when boys are never shown how to hold power and girls are never shown how to trust it? In the next act, we descend into the shadow, repressed aggression, nice masculinity, feminine burnout, and the silent rage shaping modern relationships. The shadow appears. Every culture creates a shadow, not because it is evil, but because it refuses to look at itself honestly. Carl Jung defined the shadow as everything we deny in ourselves, yet secretly act out. When masculinity is shamed, feared, or caricatured, it does not disappear. It goes underground. And underground forces do not become gentle. They become distorted. The problem with repressed aggression. Aggression is life force. It is the energy that says, I want, I will, I won't tolerate this. When aggression is repressed, it mutates. Neuroscience shows that chronic suppression activates the amygdala, the threat center, cortisol production, the stress hormone, and learned helplessness pathways. This is how passive men are born, and this is how rage-filled men are born. Same wound, different expression. Aggression denied becomes depression, or it becomes cruelty. The nice mask. The too nice masculine is not kind. It is afraid. Afraid of rejection, afraid of conflict, afraid of being seen as dangerous, so it hides behind compliance. Psychology calls this people-pleasing trauma response. Philosophy calls it cowardice disguised as virtue. Niceness says, I will abandon myself so you don't leave me. But the nervous system reads this instantly. And here is the uncomfortable truth. No one trusts someone who will not stand for themselves. Why attraction dies. Attraction is not ideological. It is biological. The nervous system is drawn to clarity, direction, and containment. When masculinity collapses into passivity, women feel unsafe, even if they can't explain why, and men feel resentful, even if they act agreeable. This is not misogyny. This is not nostalgia. This is polarity physics. Chaos does not relax without structure. Structure does not feel alive without chaos. The feminine burnout. Here is what rarely gets said. When masculine energy disappears, women do not become free. They become overloaded, forced into decision-making, emotional regulation, direction setting, and containment. But the feminine nervous system is built to flow, not to constantly lead. So women harden, they intellectualize, and they end up disconnect from desire, not because they want to, but because they must. This is not empowerment, it is survival. The father wound. The father is the first image of masculinity, not perfection, but orientation. When the father is absent, passive, tyrannical, or emotionally unreachable, the psyche fractures. Men inherit confusion about authority. Women inherit distrust of it. Attachment theory confirms this. Anxious attachment, avoidant attachment, disorganized bonding, all trace back to uninitiated masculine presence. Authority versus tyranny. Authority is earned. Tyranny is demanded. True authority says, follow me because I am responsible. Tyranny says, submit because I am afraid. When authority disappears, tyranny rushes in. In relationships, in families, in institutions, people do not rebel against leadership. They rebel against unaccountable power. The shadow in women. The shadow is not gendered. Women also carry repressed masculine energy. It shows up as control, perfectionism, hyper-independence, emotional armor. This is not strength, it is self-protection. When women cannot trust masculine containment, they become it themselves, and they lose access to their softness, receptivity, and desire. This is the cost of suppression. Men who don't trust their power, women who don't trust surrender, relationships without polarity, passion replaced by negotiation, desire replaced by safety contracts. And yet, the shadow is not a curse, it is an invitation. Because buried beneath rage, passivity, control, and burnout is the same force. Untamed life energy asking to be initiated. In the next act, we explore polarity, why masculine and feminine energies are magnetized, why attraction collapses without tension, and how relationships become initiation chambers rather than battlegrounds. Polarity and attraction, the law of polarity. Every living system moves through polarity. In physics, positive and negative. In biology, expansion and contraction. In psychology, order and chaos. Masculine and feminine are not identities. They are directions of energy. Masculine energy moves toward. Feminine energy moves through. When polarity disappears, life becomes flat, safe, but numb. Attraction is nervous system resonance. Attraction is not conscious choice. It is the nervous system asking, can I relax here? Feminine energy relaxes in structure. Masculine energy relaxes in movement and purpose. This is why decisiveness is attractive. Presence is intoxicating. Containment creates desire. You cannot negotiate attraction. You can only embody it. Chaos meets order. In mythology, the feminine is chaos, not destruction, but potential. The masculine is order, not control, but direction. When order dominates chaos, it creates oppression. When chaos overwhelms order, it creates anxiety. But when they meet consciously, creation happens. Art, sex, healing, and meaning. Why modern relationships struggle. Modern relationships try to remove tension, but tension is not the enemy. Unconscious tension is. When both partners lead, contain, decide, and manage, polarity collapses into roommateship. Desire does not fade because love dies, but because energy stagnates, because of the lack of polarity. The importance of emotional leadership. Masculine leadership in relationship is not control. It is emotional orientation. Saying, "We're okay. I've got this. Here's where we're going." This regulates the nervous system. Neuroscience shows that the calmer nervous system entrains the other. That presence beats persuasion. That safety is felt, not explained. Also remember that conflict is not failure. It is initiation. The masculine role is not to avoid conflict, but to stay present inside it. To hold emotion without collapsing. To act without cruelty. To listen without surrendering direction. This is how real trust is built. Here is what happens when the masculine holds steady. The feminine softens. Emotion flows. Creativity returns. Desire awakens. Not because the feminine is submissive, but because it is safe to be alive again. Women also carry masculine energy. It allows them to hold boundaries without hostility, have direction without rigidity, respect themselves without armor. Both men and women need to be able to tap into their masculine and into their feminine energy. Both need polarity. So here are the real questions. Can the masculine lead without domination? Can the feminine surrender without losing self? And what does mature masculine leadership actually look like in a world afraid of power? In the final act, we explore the return of the king, self-mastery, discipline, service, and the future of integrated masculine energy. The king returns, integration and initiation. Every myth ends the same way, not with conquest, but with responsibility. The king is not the one who takes power. He is the one who can be trusted with it. The sacred masculine matures when a man or a woman can say, "My life is no longer about my wounds. It is about what I am responsible for." This is the moment adolescence ends. This leadership begins in the nervous system. Before a man can lead others, he must regulate himself. Before a woman can surrender safely, she must trust her own inner authority. Neuroscience is clear. Emotional regulation precedes influence. Calm presence changes rooms, and discipline rewires identity. Modern culture treats discipline as punishment, but discipline is not repression. Discipline is love with a spine. Daily structure does something profound. It stabilizes dopamine, it builds self-trust, and it quiets anxiety. That's why rituals and routines anchor the psyche. Masculinity as service. The mature masculine does not ask, "What do I want?" It asks, "What is needed, and am I capable of providing it?" This is not self-erasure. This is giving your life meaning. Viktor Frankl discovered this in the camps. Those who survived had something or someone to live for. Purpose heals suffering. We can learn to hold strength without cruelty, structure without oppression, and direction without domination. The sacred masculine is not something to return to. It is something to grow into. It asks for courage, responsibility, and presence. It asks us to become people others can relax around. Because when strength becomes trustworthy, life opens. If this documentary helped you grow into your masculine power, Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more. Next week, we'll explore the power of feminine energy, a must-watch for men and women. See you next time on My Way.